Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in your day. Welcome to Wealth Reimagined, and I'm your host, Mya K. And I'm super excited to be with you again in this financial literacy space. So, here on the Family Bloodline Network. Welcome back. Hope you all have had a good week. I have had quite a week, quite a week. Very busy. Lots of unexpected things have happened. Um, my daughter was in a car accident, totaled her vehicle, but she is fine, and that's all that really matters. Cars can be replaced, so I'm not really concerned about that car. Just glad my baby is fine. My other daughter is very active in track and have been at two track meets this week, and the one yesterday, she was there for 12 hours. And I had to come and go between 10:30 a.m. and I think we left close to 10 that night. So I left once and came back. But what a long day, what a long day. But I am here. I did not want to allow this next week to come and go. That's just how it is sometimes. And despite all the things that we have going on, we still have to show up for one another and show up for the things that sometimes we feel like, oh my God, how am I going to get all this done? And it always works out. It always works out. So let's jump in. So let's kind of recap some things. Let's see here. Well, I know this is week 3. It is April. It is still Financial Literacy Month. And of course, as I said, Financial Literacy Month is an annual, every April, just a time to raise awareness about money management, budgeting, savings, and investing. And so it's really just a time to help you just to be thinking about where you are and maybe some goals and things that you want to accomplish or change, or habits you want to break, habits you may want to form. So it's really just an opportunity to kind of reset, as well as educate. There's so much that you could learn and add to your already either good habits. There's things you can remove to maybe some habits you aren't too fond of. So it's just really a great time to reset and think and grow, and maybe even challenge yourself to take a different approach or do something different. So, as I've stated, so this is Wealth Reimagined, and we're going to be talking about personal finance. And I think what's going to set this apart from other people talking about personal finance is a real household perspective, real household issues. I want to help navigate through real day-to-day things that you encounter, things that come up, unexpected things. And I'm hoping that as time goes on, together, we'll be creating safeguards in our household, in our budget, in our money, in our income, and protecting it, not just like ensuring it, but protecting it by being prepared for things unexpected. And so I think that's also a form of protection of our money. Also, part of protecting your money is just being prepared, already having an emergency fund. Not and there's like a starter emergency fund, and then there's also, like your 3 to 6 months expenses emergency fund. But we'll talk about all that later. Because as I already alluded to last week, we're going to be talking about budgeting today. That dirty word, budgeting. So just to recap, week 1, we got into getting organized. And I hope by now, most of you have already taken that step and gotten organized and located all of your documents. And if you haven't, we agreed. I don't know if we really agreed, but I'm going to say we agreed that you have until the 30th to get organized. Okay. Because even if you aren't able to do these steps within a week, it's very important that you set yourself a deadline. If you are just like, oh, I'll get to it, will you? You know, life's. And so give yourself a deadline. Give yourself a deadline. By the end of financial literacy month, I'm going to be organized. Maybe you are organized, but you haven't taken inventory of everything. By the end of financial literacy month, I'm going to be organized and have taken inventory of everything. Okay, so let's get serious about this because this is very important. You would not realize not only the life areas that impact how you manage your money, but how the way you manage your money impacts life areas. So it's very important. I just want to challenge you and encourage you and dare you to take it seriously. Take it very seriously. Let's get all our ducks in a row and no longer just be flying by the whichever way the wind is blowing in a situation, and be able to have some control over when things happen, because it's not a matter of if, it's when. It's when. It's when. When is it going to happen? So I want to make sure people that are part of this community have, again, those safe rails in place, and you have funds set aside for the unexpected, so that when it hit, it don't really hit as hard. It's still going to hit, but it don't hit as hard. You're not going to set yourself backwards. We're not going to keep taking 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. We're not doing that anymore. And I want you to say it. I'm not doing that anymore. Okay. So week 1, got organized. Week 2, we took inventory of everything. So you should already know where all your documents are, and you were able to determine all your income streams. You were able to determine all your expenses, your bills, debts, your investments, assets. We talked about assets, real estate, values. What's the value of my home? What's the value of my boat? What's the value of my vehicle? How much is in my 401k? How much is the total of my IRAs, my individual retirement accounts? And so that should already be done. And again, though having that inventory we talked more about assets, but when you made that debt list, what personal loans do I have? How much credit card debt do I have? How much do I owe in car loans or RV loans or boat loans? Loans, period. How much do I owe? How much do I owe on my mortgage? All that debt you owe takes away the value that you have in your assets. So you listed your income, retirement, life insurance, all that, real estate values, and other assets, and there's a total. The difference, all the things you owe, deducts from your assets, and then that number is your net worth. Assets minus their liabilities equals your net worth. So go ahead, even if you need to pause, go ahead and figure out what is your net worth currently. And it's often nice to know kind of where you are on things. Do you have a positive net worth? Do you have a negative net worth? Is your net worth even where you thought it would be? Do you have a goal? Do you want to have $1 million net worth? So just do that calculation real quick, so that way you know what your net worth is. So you have done a big step already if you're able to do that, because a lot of that information goes onto your budget. Did I trick you? Did I trick you into getting a budget? I didn't. I was just trying to get the foundation set up to show a way to, I guess, make it a little easier, because you already have now the information that you need for the most part. Okay. So the budget, first of all, what is a budget? A budget to me is a spending plan. It's a spending plan. A budget, oh, my screen did something funny. A budget, I don't want you to think of a budget as restricting you from doing something. It's a plan, and it's you controlling every dollar that you have, every penny that you have. You tell your money where it's going. You show what you're going to do with it every time you get it, instead of you just like, man, that money gone as soon as I get paid. While there might be some truth to that, depending on how much you have going out, all a budget is a spending plan. So, what do you need to call it? Like, now let's do some psychological thing here, right? What do you need to call it so that it feels more like an empowerment tool and not something restricting you? Okay. So, like I said, it's a spending plan. You could call it your wealth plan. You could call it your get out of debt plan. You could call it your control, your money control. You could call it whatever you want. You can call it whatever you want. You have to um, think of what you want to call it. If you're fine calling it a budget, that's fine too, as long as you do not allow yourself to believe that a budget is restricting me. A budget means I can't spend my money. I have to do this. I have to do that. Let's reframe that to, no, I'm telling my money exactly what I need it to do for me. Okay. So I really want to talk about different types of budgets today, because you honestly already have all your information for your budget, maybe with an exception to um, like your utility bills, because that's not really something you would include as part of like liabilities on like a personal financial statement to determine your net worth. Though I think I did mention utility bills because I'm like, list your bills, list everything. Um, so you really have everything for your budget. Okay. So I'll quickly say what items you need, and some things we'll go into more details about in other episodes. But you have your income, right? So you have your expenses. You may have fixed expenses every month. You may have variable expenses every month. I think it's important to separate those, because your fixed expenses are easy, right? You know how much your mortgage and your rent's going to be. You know how much your car note is. You know how much your insurance will be. You know how much your internet will be, your Wi-Fi. You know how much any subscriptions you may have, because, well, they don't change until they raise the price, right? But usually they're fixed, right? And then you can make that adjustment. But you get what I'm saying. All your fixed things that are the same amount every month, those are your fixed expenses. And then you have your variable expenses, like your water bill, you got your utilities. Your utilities are usually variable, unless you're on some type of budget plan where they charge you a certain amount. I have not been on one in a I think I was on one many, many years ago, and I don't remember the details. So I don't know if it is a set amount where it can be on fixed, or if it still varies a little bit, but it's about the same place. But if it's not fixed, then it will be a variable expense. Utilities generally are. And then you have things like your debts. You got your credit cards, and you have your car loans. So you have your debts. And all these things are taken away from your income, right? And then you may have a line for savings and investing. And I'm not saying these in any particular order right now. I'm just thinking of things that maybe would be a part of your budget. And then the last thing would be just specific miscellaneous things, or maybe items you have sinking funds for. Okay. Sinking fund would just be something specific that you are saving up for to spend. It's an investment that you're making in something and you're going to spend it. Or it could be just sinking fund just to get to a certain goal for something. So, for example, if you have a sinking fund for a new car, then you could set a goal for that fund and you could say, okay, I want to have $5,000 set aside for a down payment when I need to get a new car. Okay. And so you could be budgeting a small amount when you get paid to go into that fund to fund it. Okay. And we're going to get back into that in a future episode because I absolutely love sinking funds because they allow you to start creating that cushion and those safe rails that I was talking about in life because you have already prepared for it. I'll give you a really, probably an example you wouldn't even think of, but this is something I personally do. So I like to fly a certain airline. I'm not going to say it because they're not paying me to give them any type of shout out. So, but there's a particular airline that I like to fly generally, and they have a sale. I want to say, I think it's twice a year on points. And so there have been enough times where the sale has come around and I'm like, dang, I wish I could get points because they're like 50% off, 50% off on these points. And I could be flying, I could be using them to fly places and things like that. Well, in the past, whenever those sales would come up throughout the year, I would always be like, dang, I wish I had money or I might have the money to do it, but it's just like, but that's going to take away from over here because I do operate on a budget. So what I decided to do, I was like, man, I'm making a sinking fund. So the next time they send that email about these points being 50% off, I'm going to have some money to buy some points, right? And that particular fund, I didn't set like, I want $500 or nothing like that. I just put some money in there, right? And then that way it was allocated and waiting for that sale so I could go ahead and buy points. And most recently, when that happened, I was so excited because I'm like, yes, look at me. I got this money set aside, a couple $100. Cool. Let me go ahead and get these points and I could fly, right? But anyway, that's an example of a sinking fund. Or like I said, with the car, where you have a specific goal and you want to have a down payment. A sinking fund could even be like a down payment on a house. But the reason it's called a sinking fund is because the idea is that it's going to get used. So the fund will sink. It'll sink. It's a sinking fund because it's going to get used. It's not the same as like a savings, an emergency fund. It's the idea of it is so it's that it's used, but you've prepared yourself. So that's what a sinking fund is, in case you don't know. So that would be another area of your budget, right? So again, the hope is that you have enough income to take care of all of your expenses. If you do, that's awesome. If you have something left over after all your expenses, that's even better, right? Now, if you're a person that is negative in the red, you don't have enough income to cover your expenses, that's something we're going to address because that is probably causing you a lot of stress, a lot of worry, a lot of anxiety, and that's something we want to get you out of. We want to get you out of that trap, and we will talk about ways to either lower expenses in the future or increase your income. Okay. In some situations, we might need to stop the bleeding or whatever is happening, why you're in that situation. But do not feel judged. Do not feel ashamed. Just know that financial literacy, personal finance. It's learned, and you are here. You are here, and you are here to learn. You're not expected to already know everything. I'm sure, self included, no one has done everything perfectly and everything the right way. Some people had to learn the hard way. I'm one of those people. There are lessons I had to learn the hard way. There are things that I've done that I'm just like, oh my God, I cannot believe I did that. I didn't know that was going to happen. I'll give you an example of that I did. Um, I had this great idea to pay a large amount down on like my student loan debt. I have student loans. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to send this money to knock down this balance a little bit. And so I sent it. Balance did not move at all. Money gone because it all went to interest. So it was a very hard lesson. And I walked away from it now understanding the importance of asking questions and just being sure I understand things before I do them, because I could have done something different with that money. I could have done something different, but I didn't reach out and ask the questions and, know and understand that how that large payment was going to be applied. So lesson learned the hard way. But that would be an example, right? So don't feel judged. Don't feel like, man, I should know this. I should have already known this. It's cool. You don't know what you don't know. And when you know better, you do better. So, but yes, so that's your primary things that you need for your budget. So again, if you need to pause the video and see kind of where you are with this rough calc of things. You should already total what your expenses are when you did your inventory, total what your income is when you did your inventory, because this is just like a budget preliminary, right? Then when we get into budgeting for real, you'll get into more of your actual numbers. So kind of total income, total your expenses, total your bills, total your debts, as far as credit cards and loans, car loans, things like that. And then if you have a certain amount that you put in savings, that's awesome. First of all, let me say that you're saving. I love saving. And that comes out of your income, right? So see what that number is. If it's in the black, meaning you have enough money to cover all that, now you know. But if it's in the red, meaning you don't have enough money to cover all of that, now you know. Either way, you know. So I want to talk about types of budgets. I have my list here because I want to make sure I don't forget. So types of budgets, what I mean by types of budgets is just what method are you going to use to stay on top of your household income, your household money? What method are you going to use for tracking, for doing the calculation, for creating your plan? So, hey, if you are a person that likes to write everything down, write it down. I don't care if it's a spiral notebook, write it down. Like what you probably just honestly kind of did. Income, expenses, you write out what they are and how much. Notebook, right? We don't have to be fancy. We're being real. This is real life people, okay? So notebook. Another method you could use for budgeting, calendar. Calendar method. I used to use the calendar method for a long time. And I did the calendar method because I wanted to be sure I knew when bills were due. And so I would, on a calendar, I would write the bill. Let's say, okay, rent first of the month. and how much the rent was, because the rent's due the first of the month. Whatever the bill is, phone bill, and how much. Or I put the company name, um, whatever it is, a credit card, and how much. But that way I could see exactly when it's due. Why that was important is because I could also see when I got paid and what I needed to pay with that paycheck. If you're paid monthly, you got to pay everything, right? Because then you're going to get another check next month. If you're paid semi-monthly, then you see I get paid here and I get paid here. I get paid on the 1st and I get paid on the 15th. Everything from the 2nd to the 15th, I need to pay with that check I got on the 1st. I need to make sure it's paid with that check. Everything else, I'll pay with the next check, right? You get paid on the 15th, and everything on the 15th check is that's due 16th through 30th or 31st or the 1st. Everything from the check you get on the 15th is due, that's due from the 16th through the 1st. And now you have all that, okay? So anyway, we'll go into more detail with that, but hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. But that's the calendar method. There's also cash stuffing. Now, if you are someone who, I don't know if this is true, but I think a saver can do well with cash stuffing, probably easier than a spender. So I don't know if you're married or in a relationship, and usually they say opposites attract, and one person's a saver and one person's a spender, right? And so I think if you are a spender, cash stuffing might be challenging. But if you're a saver, I think cash stuffing can be very, very powerful because you like seeing the cash. You like, yeah, I got you. Look at all this money I got, right? You like being able to see it, right? So anyway, what cash stuffing is, it's when you have your budget, and sometimes it involves writing some things down so you'll know how much you need to put in an envelope. But it involves having an envelope designated for a specific category. And then you put them cash. You got to go to the bank to get cash, or you got to go to the ATM. If your ATM will allow you to get certain amounts or denominations, but it does involve going to the bank, withdrawing cash, and then stuffing your envelopes. So I'll back up. When I was saying that on the calendar method, let's say you were like, okay, on the 1st, my mortgage is $2,000. I'm going to pull out 1,000 and I'm going to pull out 1,000, right? And if you do that and you are cash stuffing or doing the envelope method, you put 1,000 in your mortgage envelope or your rent envelope. And then the next time you get paid, you put another 1,000 in there. And now you have your rent. Same with your car, same with grocery, whatever your categories are, you would be able to do that. Now, it doesn't mean you would cash stuff everything, but you might, if you're okay with going to the bank and making a deposit to handle something. It might be handy to cash stuff if you like to separate the cost of a bill and break it down by check. Let's say you're paid bi-weekly, and you want to break up an amount of a bill per check for that month. Might be 2 checks, sometimes it's 3. A couple times a year you'll get 3 checks if you're bi-weekly in 1 month. So that's cash stuffing. And I've done it. I did it for everything at one point. I actually loved it. It actually really helped me take a hold on things for a while. I don't do it as much now, at least not for everything. Um, I do it now maybe more for a sinking fund purpose, but loved it. Highly recommend it. Looking forward to doing a complete episode on just that. So, so there's cash stuffing. There's also the 50-30-20 budget, which means 50% of your income, you're going to allocate it. It's going to be allocated for needs. Mm, I said that word needs. So we'll go into that too in the future. What is the difference between needs and wants? There are going to be those things that are just like, no, that is not a need, right? There will be some things like that, but there will be some other things that are a bit more subjective, you know? So, but we'll come back to that. So the 50-30-20. So 50% go to needs, housing, grocery, things like that, transportation. 30% are for wants, and then 20% is for savings or debt. So there's that's a popular, I guess, percentage based budgeting tool. Um, but there's the 50-30-20 budget. There's also the zero based budget, which just means that you are budgeting every single cent, every dollar that you get, and you send every dollar to some category. And when you get done, it's zero. It's zero at the bottom. So earlier when I was talking about you either being in the red or in the black. So if you're in the red, you're gonna be lower than zero, right? But if you're in the black, that means you have some money left over. You need to figure out what you're gonna do with it. You're gonna throw it in your savings. You're gonna throw it toward debt and get that debt paid off faster because your interest rate is outrageous. So that is what they mean by zero based budget. I have allocated every single dollar that I make to some category, and now I'm at zero. On your budget sheet, you're at zero. Okay. Um, there's a pay yourself first budget. I'm a fan of that one. And I think pay yourself first budgets are important when you are, let's assume you don't have an emergency fund right now. You don't even have a starter emergency fund. You don't even have $500 saved. Um, I think pay yourself budgets, there is a time, well, let me not say there is a time. There's a time to start them. You should always be paying yourself first, but there's a time to go ahead and start it. Like I said, if you don't even have $500 saved, we're going to set a goal where you have $500 in a savings that you can't touch unless it's an emergency. But really, that starter emergency fund should at minimum be between $1,000 and $1,500 at minimum. Okay. And so this is a time where discipline comes into play, and you might have to cut out some things to do that. But again, we'll go into more details another time. But pay yourself first. You work hard. You work so hard. You're exhausted. Be sure you are paying yourself first. I know you got bills. I get it. But you got to take care of you, and you have to build that. And while at first it can feel uncomfortable or a little stressful because it's tight, that rocky start will become less rocky because you are paying yourself first and you're starting to build a safety net. You're building safety rails. So it's so worth it. It's so worth it. But that would be another type of budget. is your pay yourself budget. And I think that's a good start. What type of budget, if you are already budgeting, do you use? What are you currently using? Tell me in the comments. I would love to know. Um, for me personally, I use a budget notebook. Mm, I'm sorry. Let me not forget. There are also apps. There are also apps that you can use to do your budget. Um, I've not found one that I'm a fan of, but I haven't tried them all. So if you are using an app for your budget, tell me which one you are using in the comments. I would love to check it out. If there were a way, maybe one day I will get to a point where I'll see if like my bank has a budgeting tool and let it do it for me. What is kind of cool to see on your mobile bank app, or if you log in, if your online banking has it, for it to categorize your spending, to kind of so you can see like, oh man, I eat out. I spent $700 eating out. Like that's insane. Or, if that's what you did, I'm not judging. I'm just saying, for me, $700 would be a lot to pay to eat out in 1 month. So sometimes that's eye opening too, just to see your categories. So use these tools just to provide more information for you, help you identify habits, things of that nature. But I've gone over just a little bit. So that's my time. I want to try to keep these where maybe you can listen and tune in on your commute to work or your commute home from work, um, while you're getting ready in the morning. But I just want to be a part of your day every week, and just sharing more tips and ideas and sharing stories and hoping that they can be inspiring. I hope that you're learning. Again, comment, ask questions. I'm looking forward to reading them always. But that is all I have for today. And so until next time, remember, organized, inventory, budget. And of the ideas that I gave, pick one that you want to try. And if you have one that's already working for you, keep doing it. But we're just going to get it even better for you, and get savings and emergency funds in place and just stop the bleeding or whatever might be going on in your household financially. So till next time, thank you for tuning in to Wealth Reimagined. Again, I'm your host, Mya K, and I'm looking forward to